Hello there, we've saved you a seat. I'm Brian Kelly, and this is Train Station at 8, a place for people who love video game music to just sit back and talk about it for a while. This is episode 7. Wait, Steven, I'm sorry, we're doing weird stuff with music, with episode numbers this time, aren't we?
Yeah, you may think it's episode 7, and if you lived, through your ordinary old linear time frame that we're used to as human beings in the space we inhabit, you'd be right. However, after recording a bunch of episodes and backlogging them, we realized that our bi-weekly schedule just was not going to keep up with current events. And I think the thing that pushed this over the edge was talking to Jim Crawford, who we will be introduced to in a moment. And he has a Kickstarter that went live recently. And I realized if we stuck to our old schedule of, pushing episodes out and out and out, we'd never actually talk about current events that were going on at the time.
That's a good point.
So, we have turned this episode into episode 1.5. In a brave move before episode 2, after episode 1.
Or as we prefer to call it, 1/2. Or, sorry, episode 1.5.
Yeah, sure, whichever way you like to put it. So, that's where we stand with episode count.
Alright, so, this is episode 1.5, Musical Moodiness. This will be about game music setting the mood for a given game, or the atmosphere. So joining me for that topic today is, of course, my brother, who's already been talking for a while, Steven. Hi,
Hello.
Steven.
I talk a lot.
You're Steven. You're Steven, right?
Yes, sir.
I'm not positive. Okay. I'm going to have to trust you on that point.
Mm-hmm.
And also, Jim Crawford. Hello, Jim.
Hello.
You are the maker of a game, I've heard.
I have made several games, actually.
Okay. You are the maker of games.
Games plural.
Yeah, exactly. So one of those games is one that I really, really loved, Frog Fractions.
I liked that one, too.
Yeah, I thought it was...
pretty happy with how that turned out.
Hey, we should start a fan club.
Whoa. I don't know if I'm ready for that.
Can you start a fan club with the creator of the thing?
I don't know, but we're going to find out. But hey...
Be a charter member, that's great.
But now, mistake me if I'm incorrect, though, Jim. But you also did some of the music for Frog Fractions, right?
I wrote about half the music for Frog Fractions.
Okay, good. I'm glad, because this is a game about video game music. It would have been really embarrassing if I had found out you didn't.
Well, I could still talk about the process, even if I hadn't written it.
Hey, true enough.
That's a good point.
Yeah, so for those of you who have not checked it out, Frog Fractions was a free-of-charge video game on the internet. And it was super weird. And I really can't... or I suppose I don't want to explain it too much, because over half the fun is discovering it for yourself.
Yeah.
So I would encourage you, perhaps before even listening to this fine podcast, go over there, check it out.
In fact, let's just draw a line in the sand right now. There are going to be spoilers.
Yes, that is an...
And you don't want that game spoiled, because who wants fractions spoiled for yourself? I mean, learning fractions is one of the most fun things a human can do.
It's a great joy in our lives.
Exactly, and there's no better way to do it than Frog Fractions.
I just realized that we called this episode 1.5. That's forward thinking.
Yeah, I know.
Accidental puns.
Those are my favorite kind.
That's my nickname. Anyway, so our format for Train Station at 8 is 8 different questions relating to our given topic. This time, ambient music and games, or musical moodiness, if you like alliteration. The first question is more just a general one. I know I just said all 8 would be about the topic, but the first one isn't. It's a question of just what have you been listening to in general. This could be video game music or just any music at all. So, Jim, you can go ahead and start us out here.
Lately I've been obsessed with a Japanese prog band called Asturias.
Okay.
I'm already on board.
And I haven't been able to find much of anything except for a copy of the album that my friend Lewis gave me, and then like a little bit of live concert footage on YouTube. Mm-hmm. So I actually can't tell you that much about it, but I think it's a one-man project that expands out to like a full band for the live concert. And the other thing is Tally Hall.
Who do we think we are? Everything plays a part. There are some things we are never meant to know.
Which had one kind of okay album and then one amazing album and then broke up.
Okay.
And,
okay.
And the amazing album was like 2011, so I'm coming to it kind of late. But it's called Good and Evil. It's really like it feels a lot like the Beatles in both in terms of the style of songwriting and also like every member of the band is a serious like accomplished songwriter.
Right.
And so in a lot of respects it's almost an anthology of all their abilities.
Yeah.
And they also in that they are really accomplished live players, and their first album kind of was constructed. It felt like it was constructed to show that off more than to actually be good music.
Oh, right, yeah.
And so, like, if you see them play some of the stuff from that live, it's really like, oh, this is really entertaining and impressive, but it's not a great album to just put in your CD player.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally get that.
So what type of music is it?
Tally Hall, I would call that rock, bordering on classic rock.
Okay. And it was 2011, you said. So who are the people, like, are they known outside of this group much?
I think they all have solo acts now, but I don't think any of them are really famous.
Okay, gotcha. Have you looked into any of their solo stuff and started following them?
Not yet, but I plan to.
Gotcha. That's really cool.
It's one of the things I always really enjoy about finding like a band of like diverse, of people with a diverse musical range is if you like, specifically, I love this guitarist, then you can just go off and follow his work and.
Sure, yeah, and it helps that they're all, like, if you look at, I looked at the composition credits for all my favorite tracks on the album, and it was all different people. So they're all going to be worth following, most likely.
That's really cool. Yeah. Yeah. I might check that out sometime.
Right. So what have you been listening to, Stephen?
Well, that's a great question, Brian.
Yeah, I know. I ask it every week.
You sure do.
Every other week.
And actually, I might blow your mind a little bit with this one. But I've been listening to an album recommended from one of our future guests.
What? That's crazy.
Yes, exactly.
It's time bending.
It's completely time bending.
Also thematic with Frog Fractions.
Exactly. See, I'm way smarter at this planning thing than I give myself credit for. But yeah, I guess I'll still keep the guest a secret. But the artist in question is called She. This particular album is Chip Tech, which is actually free on the website. SheMusic.com, I think.
Now, that's She, like, as in S-H-E?
As in S-H-E, She Music.
Okay.
Yeah. And I was pleasantly surprised with this. It's electronic, it's chiptune-y, it's really exciting and upbeat, and it has a really nice pace to it, and it was just fun all the way through.
So is She one person?
I have no idea. I just heard about the music, went to the website, said, this is free, and clicked a button.
All right.
Then it was in.
And I just realized, is she one person is a very odd question in retrospect.
Yes. I can't even confirm if she is a single individual.
Or she is a she.
I can't, I don't even know if
all right.
But she
So you really don't know anything about what you're talking about.
All I know is she creates excellent chiptune electronic music that I thoroughly enjoyed.
Cool. Anything else?
In my effort to collect all the Sonic the Hedgehog soundtracks in existence, I purchased Shooting Star Story, which is the soundtrack to hit phenomenon Sonic Riders Zero Gravity for the
Oh wow, you're getting in depth.
Yes.
Have you found that the Sonic series has consistently good music?
I've found that the Sonic series has consistently my favorite music, and I don't care what anyone else says.
That's very interesting.
Yeah,
I found it has consistently interesting music.
I won't try to talk you out of it.
Thanks. All right, I appreciate that. Hey, if you listen to any of these podcasts, you'll probably eventually find out that both Brian and I have an obsession with Sonic music, the old stuff, even the newer stuff, which people usually turn their noses up at. It is partly to do with nostalgia, and partly to do with, like Brian said, it's just very interesting. Like, there aren't many, cartoon platformer mascots who get rock bands to come in and create original music for their games. And
That's fair, yeah.
Even if it's not always great, it's certainly entertaining and sometimes very impressive.
Yeah, I agree.
But anyway, this particular soundtrack isn't anything special. But I think it's better than the first Sonic Riders. It again is a bit electronic-y, very focused on momentum and like a pounding beat in the background the whole time.
Right.
But unlike the first one, it does more than that. It doesn't just leave the beat and, that's it.
Yeah, they didn't have much beyond that in Sonic Riders.
There's like some, sort of symphonic sounding stuff. And just more layers.
Is it still kind of techno?
It definitely is still techno.
Okay.
It has some nice melodramatic, almost, I don't know, dark techno theme songs with lyrics.
Yes.
I don't really know how to explain it. But it's interesting.
Yeah, Sonic Riders were interesting Sonic games because they were not. I mean, Sonic games are always about speed, and so the tempo is always an important part of them. But Sonic Riders was a Sonic game that was also a racing game, so it's kind of doubly about that tempo and speed. So they really put all of their stock in the kind of the pacing of the track behind it.
That is absolutely true, and I think it works. Like the Sonic Rider soundtrack is actually pretty boring, at least the original.
Right. There's almost no melody.
But when you're playing the game, which is pretty okay actually, it really adds to the. I don't know. I guess.
And
just
next
the
up, you need to buy the Sonic Free Rider soundtrack.
That's the next one, the Kinect game. I hope it has good music too.
We're never going to play it to hear the music. So
yeah, I don't think we're going to bother actually playing that. And the last thing I've been listening to is actually technically it's a podcast, and no, it's not ours. It's RPGFan.com's Rhythm Encounter.
Okay, that's a good name.
Kind of a spin-off from their main podcast, which is called Random Encounter.
Okay.
And recently they have been going through all of the RPG music from 2013.
All of it?
Well, all of it that they could possibly fit into like 3+ episodes packed with songs and guests.
So, like, it's mostly Western RPGs, Japanese
the vast
RPGs?
majority is Japanese RPGs.
Okay.
And I would say I don't actually know that much about RPG Fan. I haven't really been paying attention to them very much until now. But I would say that's partially because there are just more JRPGs, I feel, with notable music than Western RPGs. And I feel like that's kind of the background of more of their guests. They have more fond memories of Final Fantasy VI than Baldur's Gate, from what I understand.
Yeah.
But yeah, what a range of excellent music. It further supports my theory that Japanese RPG music is some of the most consistently good music in video games.
Mm-hmm.
What are, like, any new ones you were introduced to that are like, whoa, I never heard that before, that's actually awesome?
Tons of them.
Alright, like, what's the one that stood out?
The problem is, they go through them so fast, I can't always remember the titles, but I've never heard Ni no Kuni's music before.
Okay, yeah.
You should hear Ni no Kuni's music. It's beautiful and soaring and everything I love about that style of orchestra.
Is it like fully orchestrated and what?
It is.
Is that does it sound like a film score?
I've never seen any of the Studio Ghibli. Is that how you pronounce it? Ghibli?
I'm not
Ghibli?
sure.
One?
No idea.
Oh, well, no one here knows. Anyway, that specific brand of film, that sort of anime style film. I've never seen them. From what I hear, it is pretty much that soundtrack in a game.
That's cool.
So it does have a bit of a film-like quality.
So quick trivia, what does Ni no Kuni mean?
I have no idea, but it's fun to say. Ni no Kuni, Ni no Kuni.
Yeah,
Ni no Kuni.
and I'm having to really hope it's not a swear.
Yeah, I hope not. This is not
Translated
a
because-
podcast.
Yeah, you need to start doing some heavy editing.
But yeah, that's been pretty much it. I've been talking long enough. Lots of music.
Okay, apparently translated literally, it is Second Country,
That makes,
also called The Another World. Wait, what?
Are
Okay.
you using Google Translate?
No, I'm using Wikipedia, same thing.
Well, that makes a little more sense than Bravely Default, I suppose.
It's possible
had
the
to-
person... Yeah.
They had to use the Japanese title because Another World is already a game.
Oh, really? Yeah, I think you're right.
Very tricky.
Okay, anyway, so anything else, Stephen, or has that been it?
Now, what have you been listening to?
What I've been listening to, I've been listening to the soundtrack for Another World from Delphine Software. No, I haven't.
Have you actually? Okay.
I wish. I wish.
That soundtrack it's good, but it's like 2 minutes long.
Oh, yeah, right.
I've wanted to play that game, but I haven't yet.
Let me know if it holds up.
Okay.
I played it like 20 years ago. I really liked it then, but it's hard to know.
Interesting. Yeah, I definitely want to give that a try. It looks very interesting. I think I might own it on GOG even, but I have to go check that. As for what I've been listening to, let's see here. I wrote it down somewhere, so yeah, here we are. Ace Combat Assault Horizon.
Hey, Ace Combat.
Ace Combat, yep. I love Ace Combat music. It is like some of my favorite video game music to listen to. I'm not quite sure why I keep going back to it as much as I do. But like Ace Combat 5, Ace Combat 6, those are the two that I've listened to a ton. And this one is different because, well, I mean, the whole series changed a lot with this game.
Well, quick question, Jim. Do you have any history with the Ace Combat series?
I do not.
Do you know that it's about airplanes?
That was my guess from the title.
Okay.
And in fact, I think I did know that. I think I remember something about that being one of the PlayStation 3 launch titles, maybe being in that series.
Maybe I'd have to look that up. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if it was a launch title, but there definitely was one on the PS3.
So did you know it was about planes fighting?
With combat in the title, I assumed.
Okay, you're good at this whole deduction thing.
Yes, it's always good to have sharp guests on the show.
All right, so Ace Combat 5 and 6 were developed fairly close to each other. The music was kind of a cross between intense, kind of orchestral dogfighting sort of music, and then also putting electronic themes into it. So there was a lot of kind of
there's a very
rhythm and repetition as strings would swell and different melodies coming in and out of it, and kind of drum and bass behind it, and so on. Sometimes an electric guitar. It was a very distinct musical style.
Mm-hmm.
Same guy who made a lot of the Soul Calibur soundtracks.
Yeah, so Brian and I often have to have passive-aggressive conversations about what is better, Soul Calibur or Ace Combat music.
Right, because Ace Combat music is better, so it's usually pretty short conversations.
Yeah,
but
it's always Soul Calibur.
Anyway, Ace Combat Assault Horizon came out a while after both 5 and 6, and really like westernized the series a lot. It was still made in Japan, I believe, but they're kind of trying to appeal to a Western audience with it, so it actually got a lot more shallow. It kind of was like Call of Duty in the air, and I basically wasn't interested at all in playing it because it didn't do very well and didn't look very good.
They even went so far as to add in a visual effect, wherein destroying an enemy jet in front of you will splatter the screen with oil. And
it was pretty pathetic. Yeah.
A little bit.
Oh, it's just slow motion oil spurt effects were a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so Assault Horizon, I never really thought about giving the soundtrack a try because the game sounded so honestly stupid. But then, Steven, you decided to pick it up because you heard a little of it and thought it was super good. And then I got it from your iTunes library and I've listened to it way more than you have.
Yeah. In fact, in our very last show, when we were talking to Jason Napolitano, I think I purchased it while recording that.
Right, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. It's actually a lot more like old Ace Combat. It's not the same guy, I don't think, but it's a lot more like Ace Combat soundtracks than I thought it would be.
Mm-hmm.
But because it takes place in a Middle Eastern front, they decided to go crazy with the Middle Eastern influences in the music.
Great.
So that actually gets a really interesting new sound to it, and it's just fantastic music. So
it sounds a little cheesy because they went so far with it.
Yeah.
It's a cheesy game.
Ace Combat's always
it
been.
isn't musically excellent. It's just...
Yeah. Anyway, so I've been loving that. Also been listening to, let's see here, Sonic and the Secret Rings I listened to today, that soundtrack.
Oh, yeah.
That's such a good soundtrack.
I'm
so weird.
Of Arabian hip-hop.
Yeah, exactly. Some more Switchfoot, and the soundtrack to Frozen I recently bought.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, great. That makes me happy.
Oh, yeah. So I've been listening to that because that is one of my favorite musicals I've heard.
Did you buy, the full version with all the bonuses?
Nah. I looked at them and previewed them, and I'm like, I don't need to pay for this right now.
You're just gonna listen to, the main 6 songs over and over again anyway.
Pretty much. Yeah, that's already what I'm doing. So that's been awesome, and that's about all I've been listening to lately. So that's the most of it. So moving on to question 2. Melodic music versus ambient music. Which do you prefer, and when do you use what?
Well, we picked a pretty loaded question for the first.
Yeah, it kind of just sums up the whole thing. Steven, this is interesting question formatting you've done here, but I'm going to trust your judgment. So, I mean, for people who don't, it's pretty self-evident what the difference between melodic and ambient music would be.
Yes. And let me put a little disclaimer here. We don't have to answer this question definitively. We don't have to answer it in its broadness.
Okay, no, there's three of us. We vote, and then whichever one wins is the better kind of music.
I answer yes.
Okay, good.
I'm with you.
Caliber versus Ace Combat, and we'll be done.
Right.
So you can interpret it however you like. I just wanted to get us, talking about it.
Right.
And I will definitely say I'm a bit in the Grant Kirkhope sort of mentality, where
Team Kirkhope. Hashtag.
Yeah, you're right. I should probably finish most of my tweets with hashtag Team Kirkhope.
Right.
I could probably get him to start a phenomenon on the internet. I gravitate, as probably a lot of people do, strongly towards the melodic music. Oftentimes just because it's what you can remember.
Yep.
I think I oftentimes don't give enough credit towards that music that stays in the background and simply exists to help me be convinced that this video game is, in some sense, real or worth paying attention to.
Right.
Now that said, I think that both are 100% valid, but I do feel like the ambient music is maybe a little bit overused or a little bit too heavily relied on in a lot of modern Western games. So, Brian, am I being very blanket statementy with that? Well, not necessarily racist. That wasn't where I was going with that. We'll say blanket statement.
This was something that happened in, like, the mid-'90s with video games, when we moved from chip music, which was almost necessarily melodic, because otherwise it would barely be anything at all, to Red Book audio, where composers realized, hey, we could make music that's like film scores, except and that's what video game music has become since then.
That is an extremely succinct history of video game music.
It's also a little fatalistic, but I mean, if we want to generalize, mainstream video game music has largely gone down that route.
Well, do you think that, being racist as I always am,
yeah,
do you think that this is more of a Western sort of, technique utilized? Man, that sounded really smart. Or do you think that, like,
you're saying, do you
Japanese or Korean or, those sort of soundtracks, do you think that they still stay in the roots of, melody? Do you think that's true or false?
Yes.
Oh, jeez.
I think that's, I mean, obviously it's not true across the board, but I think generally there's more melody coming out of them than there is in the West. Yeah.
And
I would guess that, and this is also me probably being racist, but, that American game developers tend to be coming a lot more from the mindset of trying to imitate film.
Hideo Kojima begs to disagree, but...
That's true. That's a good point.
He's kind of an exception, but I get what you mean.
But whereas I think in Japan, games are taken a little bit more seriously as its own medium.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's got its own history and its own stylistic tropes.
Right. I think if there's a weakness in Japan, if you want to call it a weakness, is they tend to emulate their previous games a lot. Like, there are sound effects and music and interface elements and gameplay elements that just won't leave their series because they just keep iterating on them.
I think that's true. And it's interesting, especially when you, like, say, take a specific genre, like a really big one, like fantasy.
Like shooters? Okay.
Well, no, I'm going to say
fantasy shooters. That's a giant genre.
I mean, when you say a Japanese shooter, I just think of, like, Gradius or Gradius or however you pronounce it.
Right.
Okay. I figured this out like a year ago. Gradius is a corruption. There I go. It's a corruption of Gladius.
Oh, okay. I'm going to use that from now on. Thank you. I've been wondering that for many years. Now just convince me that it's Ocarina and not Ocarina of Time.
That one I'm not sure about. Okay. I'm sorry.
We'll keep asking guests until we get that one.
Yep.
Anyway, so yeah, you take the fantasy games, and you look at like Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest and the Japanese RPGs compared to the Western RPGs. And in my most humble of opinions, I'm probably going to like the Japanese ones more. I tend to like that style of music more often. Largely because they go for like the emotion and the like, I don't know, like a character's theme song, and they go for, like we were saying, really melody-driven pieces of music. You go to your Dragon Ages and your Elder Scrolls, as much as I love Elder Scrolls music, and it's more to fit the mountains in the background and the
trying to set a
mood,
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at the games as well, often they're more character-focused in a JRPG than they would be in a Western RPG. A Western RPG is often more about the world building and the environment.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and that said, although I like to listen to the Japanese soundtracks more often, this episode is about, setting the stage, if you will, using music.
right.
And so I think that the Western games might have a bit more of a leg up in that department, because a song that sounds like an Elven Treetop Village rather than some really awesome shredding guitar piece that you want on your iPhone, that might draw you into that particular location a little better.
It could be a shredding guitar piece that sounds like an Elven Village, too, though.
Yeah, but that's some wacko Elven Village.
Yeah, but it is something different.
That's true. Yeah, and I'm not saying, well, obviously, one is not right, one is not wrong. But, yeah, that's...
But Ace Combat is
kind
better
of-
than Soul Calibur.
Yeah, that's
what you're
my,
getting at.
my rambly takeaway. That's exactly it.
All right. So, any other thoughts on this question? Like, an idea of if ambient music is better at creating atmosphere than melodic music, or if people don't use melodic music enough?
Well, I still think I wrote this question too open.
Open?
So,
Yeah.
you know what? We're already really deep into the podcast. So let's move on.
Yeah, let's go ahead
We'll
and
get into
go
the
on.
specifics.
Okay. So, question number 3. When did a soundtrack particularly draw you into the moment?
Yeah, I think this will help also because it's going to take specific examples. So
Yeah.
we're not just gallivanting all across the melodic lanes of music.
It's hard to answer this question, for me at least, and probably for anybody, because the time the soundtrack is most effective in bringing you into the moment is the time you don't notice the soundtrack.
Yep. Very true.
Very good point.
So if I were to literally answer it, it would probably be in a Rock Band game.
That's an excellent, and I almost feel like it's a trick answer, but totally true.
That comes up like every time we talk about how a game uses music. It's like, well, Rock Band's an obvious example.
Yeah, I guess that's
Yeah.
that's a good point. But
Exactly.
yeah, I mean, if you look a little deeper into that, I mean, why is it drawing you in so much? It's because every finger movement affects the music. Like,
Yeah.
Right, you're connected to the music.
yeah.
And the whole game's point is to draw you into the sensation of playing that song.
And now let's take it a little away from the rhythm games and a more subtle use of this. It's the same technique, but you go to like The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker. And in that game, when you strike a moblin, or whatever you happen to be facing down at the moment, if you do a successful sword strike, it will play this little like string hit.
Right.
I think what's that silly game everyone loved so much, where you're running around on skyhooks? Bioshock Infinite.
Bioshock Infinite?
Yeah. That game did a similar thing with headshots, right?
Yeah.
Island
Yeah,
strings.
similar.
That's the same concept. You do something to the game, you get a musical reward for it, and it pulls you deeper into the experience.
I didn't notice that in Bioshock. That's really cool. So maybe that was an example of it drawing me in.
Mhm.
But I couldn't tell you for sure. But a similar thing that I did notice, just from a craft standpoint, was in Mario Galaxy. They actually have metadata storing the. I'm assuming they must because it's clear that they have to have done this. They have storing the chord progression along with all the music, because when they play musical jingles, when you pick up a coin or when you use a star catapult, it actually plays jingles that fit with the music.
That's awesome. I noticed that with the catapults, but not with the smaller things. That's very cool.
Yeah.
So a lot of these examples we've given so far aren't like entire pieces of music, but more of like layered effects to the music.
Yeah.
That pull you in deeper. I would say like just taking like a full, soundtrack piece that really drew me directly into what was going on the screen was the very opening of Darksiders 2, where it was Death versus War, or something. What were their names? Death and Wars.
Yeah, you got it right the first
Death
time.
versus War. And
Who will win? I mean, that's an interesting, interesting conflict.
That's really too deep for us, I think, here on Train Station.
Yeah.
I'm hoping it's going to be a stalemate.
Yep.
But
will it be the death of war or the war of death?
Either situation sounds super grim. And this was a super grim world. There were skulls everywhere. But that, like, it was like this seriously epic conflict between these two great brotherly warriors and all the drama going on. But it was that soundtrack that made me buy into that whole moment. Like,
right.
I won't try to explain it because it'll do a terrible job. Just look it up.
There were swords and they hit each other with swords.
Music really does do. It's really important to make you take something seriously when it's something completely stupid and melodramatic.
Mm-hmm.
That is the perfect way to put it.
I think Blizzard is really great at that.
It was very...
Because everything they make is stupid and melodramatic.
And it was extremely Blizzard-esque. I mean, that whole game looked like a Warcraft game.
For sure.
But you're right, like with those, like the deep horns and pounding drums, and like, it was so serious and so, like, world-ending conflict that I was completely sold on that whole scene. And it was probably 50 to 70% because of the music. So, that's my
experience. My choice for this was less a specific moment and more just creating an atmosphere. And this is one I bring up pretty often. And it is also Blizzard, but I think the music they did in Hearthstone, good choice. Succinctly captured the warm tavern atmosphere they're trying to go for.
Also Blizzard-esque, but the opposite of what I just put forward.
Right, exactly. Blizzard has quite a spectrum at this point.
Because, it's obvious you're going to play loud, dramatic, epic music with maybe some choruses here and there, to get your attention. But, Hearthstone doesn't grab your attention with, a mallet or something. It's just...
No, not at all. I mean, I think something that's so fantastic about that game, and the music is probably its most defining use of this, is that it doesn't just say we're going to make a card game. It decides to say we're going to ground the card game into something that's actually going on. You're in a tavern playing with these cards. So they use the music like you would hear in a tavern and play it very down to earth, not a lot of crazy symphonies or even electric guitars or trying to be goofy with it. They try to make it really warm and inviting, like you could actually be sitting at a table in a tavern and hearing people play it live. So
that's really interesting that they would make that decision to make it like you're not just playing a card game, you're pretending to play a card game. You're role-playing somebody who's playing a card game.
Pretty much. And it really does help create a unique atmosphere to it all.
And this whole topic is super tight in just straight up sound design, sound effects, voice acting. And Hearthstone has that nailed too. You've got the patrons cheering you on, and the clinking of mugs in the background. Yes, it perfectly fits all the music they have.
Do you think there was any particular moment in Frog Fractions that you tried to rely on the music to create the atmosphere, draw people in?
Two places that really rely on them. No, maybe more than that. So I would say the first thing to come to mind is the credits.
Okay.
Where I was trying to evoke a very specific moment from pop culture, which was the ending of The Matrix.
Okay, gotcha.
I've never seen The Matrix.
Yeah, so I missed that.
Wow, okay, you both missed that.
Yes, exactly.
Well, did the ending work for you?
I'm trying. It has been a long time since I played Frog Fractions. I remember I was doing the little lemonade stand type game.
Yeah.
And
so this is so we already established there's going to be spoilers here.
Yes.
So this is after you buy this presidential swimming pool.
Right.
You're in the pool, and when you dive underwater in the pool, it just cuts to black and the credits roll. And it plays a song that is very reminiscent of "Wake Up" by Rage Against the Machine. And the implication is that every time you've dived underwater, something awesome has happened. This time, it's so awesome we can't even show you.
Right.
And the ending of the Matrix was similar in that it was trying to evoke suddenly the world opens up, and here's this awesome music to go along with that.
And it's been, a year maybe?
Yeah, probably a year and a half.
It was October 2012.
Okay, yeah, so it's been quite a while since I finished the game, though I've played it fairly recently. I remember getting that sensation from the ending, but I definitely didn't get that specific of, didn't resonate.
Didn't get a reference, but it did still work for me. Yeah.
I wouldn't have done it that way if it wasn't effective, I thought, just by itself.
Yeah.
So.
I personally think it worked by itself. But I mean, I'll be honest, I don't know which jokes I got and which jokes I didn't get in conversations. It was all just, maybe I'm completely missing something about the history of boxing, flying on my dragon underwater. Maybe I got every detail. I'm not sure.
There was a lot of stuff in that game that was I put in there for a specific person.
Well, that's really what I like to see when people make humorous or just strange games. Just go for it, because those people are going to love it, and the people who don't get it are going to be so wonderfully, blessedly confused that it'll all be worth it.
Because they could never expect what humor is coming next, even if they don't understand it. I think one moment for me in Frog Fractions where the music, I don't know if it defined the moment, but it complemented it so well, is when you first get your, first start flying in space.
Oh yeah, that's the first time the music isn't just that looping.
Yeah,
that's true.
Genesis platformer music.
Oh my gosh, but that music was brilliant. We actually we were considering at some point using it as a theme song for one of our podcasts because we like it so much.
The Genesis platformer music or the flying off into space
just
music?
The first music you hear when you start the game.
Yeah, they just kind of dopey, just
doom, doom. Yeah, it just plays.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And it just sounds exactly like one of those old learning games to me, and I love it.
As someone whose first exposure to video games was Math Blaster, those jokes did work. So
yeah, I loved that so much. So, were there any other moments you saw as the music being really important?
Yeah, the other two that come to mind immediately are the title sequence, meaning the. And maybe you guys didn't get this one either. Again, I thought it worked on its own. Was the title sequence was a parody of the West Wing title sequence.
So the funny thing is, I had not seen the West Wing before I played Frog Fractions. I did start watching it this last year, so now I want to go back so much and see what that was.
Okay, yeah.
So I'm going to do that.
And I had to. I really wanted to evoke that specifically, so I asked.
Does that happen when you become president?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. So not the title of the game.
The crowning. Well, I think of it as a late title sequence because it's got all the credits and then you see the title.
Oh my gosh, I need to see that now. That's great.
And then the whole underwater sequence, it really had to nail the music on that because it was going for a very specific mood of exploration, very safe, idle exploration. I wonder what's around this corner. It must be something cool because it can't possibly hurt me.
Right. And was the boxing history about that just a joke for someone in particular? Were you just trying to be random?
So for a long time, that sequence was silent. And I didn't even have the music for a while, but even after we put in the music, there was no narration there.
Yeah.
And there was no background art, and it was just incredibly boring. You're swimming around a maze for 10 minutes, and then it ends.
That's playing Echo the Dolphin. Yep.
And I wanted to think of something to spice it up, and I'm not a very good artist, so I was begging for art help from all my friends, and the lead artist was in school at the time, so she was busy almost all the time, and so what I had to spice it up was the audio part of the game. That was where my skill set was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's something I think is actually really interesting about video games is that even in AAA games, there's basically usually one guy in charge of an entire sense.
Yeah. That's a really good point.
like you've got 200 people were drawing textures and modeling the world, and then one person did all the music. One person did like half of what you're experiencing. And so I had a lot of like as a reasonably good composer, I had a lot of leeway in terms of like just setting that mood. That was one of my superpowers in terms of the development there. And so I had played Dear Esther.
Yeah.
Have you guys, you're familiar?
I reviewed it actually.
Right, okay. And I thought that was, I actually didn't like it as a game, but I liked the idea and I liked the writing itself. And I wanted to I'll do a parody of that writing. I'll do that like in this underwater maze sequence. It turns out duplicating that style is actually really hard.
Definitely
writing
didn't
like
go
that
on
is-
about kidney stones enough. I think that's what was missing.
Yep.
Right, that might be it. And so I was trying to think of like what can I do with in the audio space here, and I went back to this essay I wrote in 2006. And this was around when Uwe Boll was challenging people who didn't like his movies to fight him in the boxing ring because he was trained boxing. And so I wrote an essay. That just got me thinking about like, well, what if the whole punching thing was just an emergent behavior in the design of the game? And it was just about like falling asleep before that. And so I asked my friends, okay, which of you has the best accent? And Kumar responded, and I gave it to him to read and put it in the game as it was. It was,
As conceived in 1632 by Portuguese printing press operator André Felipe, boxing was a gentleman's game in which two men would square off and regale each other with stories monotonous for days on end, until one of them fell to the ground from boredom or exhaustion. Over the next few years, the new sport developed a respectable following of a few hundred local socialites. It was Felipe's son, André Felipe, who developed what he called the punching strategy in 1637, after seeing a schoolboy strike another in anger, causing him to fall down. When André Felipe challenged the then champion, British expatriate Sleepless Bill Bishop, to a match, Bishop was the odds-on favourite. You can imagine his surprise when, while he was describing what he had had for breakfast that morning, André walked up and thumped him in the neck, sending him down for the count, in the parlance of our time.
I really, really appreciate that you actually followed through on that entire idea.
Yeah.
well, that is the story of Frog Fractions, is that like, oh, here's a stupid idea. I'll spend 2 weeks making it happen.
Right.
It's theoretically possible that other people might have thought up ideas similar or at least equally as crazy, but very few of them would have actually put it into a game and finished it and linked them all together. Right.
Right.
Yeah, just the idea that, man, this segment is boring, so I'm just going to put a random thing I find amusing on top of it and call it a day.
But that's kind of interesting. How you said that you didn't have all the art skills, so you stuck to the music, and I guess
I put a lot of emphasis on that because I care about that stuff.
Yeah, and as someone who typically pays more attention to music in games than most people, maybe I hope I do because I run a podcast about it.
Sure.
It's really cool to see someone who is thinking about the impact that music is going to have when they put it into the game, but also realizing that even though they don't have full control over what you see in the game, you're kind of compensating and being more creative, therefore, with the audio. And that's just a combination that I always find interesting.
Yeah. The other place where music really set the scene was the Dance Dance Revolution sequence.
Oh,
yes.
Of course.
Yes.
Oh, man. That's like the part that
I need to play that game again.
want to replay the most, actually.
Yeah. No, I want to see that West Wing intro now. Oh man, I'm so curious.
I need to watch that show, I guess.
All right. So, let me think here. Yes, we answered that question, so I'm going to go ahead and say, question number 4. can/should frog fractions act as a dietary supplement?
Bugs.
My answer...
Eat
What?
bugs.
Bugs?
Okay, good.
All
I
right.
think we figured it out, guys.
Yep.
Question
Awesome.
5.
All right, question number 5. When did a lack of music particularly draw you into a moment? So this is the idea of a video game not using music to create a scene or a sense of atmosphere.
Now,
Rather
I feel
than-
like you guys are both going to hate me for this one, because if it's hard to remember the time that music pulled you into a moment,
This is,
it's
that's exactly what I was going to
impossible
say.
to remember the time music didn't.
Technically, this is my question. I thought about it. So.
I have no idea, but I'm going to guess it was Dead Space.
Okay, yeah, that's a good answer. I had a hard time thinking of anything.
I had
Yes.
one. You want me to go ahead?
Okay, I do have a couple, but go ahead.
All right, so for me, it kind of defines to me as not the idea of like, wow, I am noticing this lack of music, but something that upon reflection, I'm like, adding music here would have taken away from what they were trying to say.
Okay,
Maybe in a game that otherwise has music, it's like silence can become meaningful when you're used to kind of just hearing music all the time.
That's
So,
way smarter than my answer.
so for me, the answer was the overworld in Shadow of the Colossus.
Oh, that is an excellent point. Yeah.
Because when you're fighting Colossi, or even when you see Colossi, music starts. But just exploring that empty world, there is never any music.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Because that place is lonely and forgotten and almost dead.
Right.
And I feel like even if you had, I don't know, like some mournful pipes in the background or a lute,
Yeah.
it would
It
just
would
be
work.
like too much. It would be
And they originally, if you look at some of the music, it sounded like they had different musical themes for different areas, and they took them all out when they made the actual game. And there's no combat, so they didn't need any, music for when you're fighting people. So I just thought that was a very interesting choice, using no music whatsoever for anything but the Colossi and, of course, the cutscenes.
Yeah, you're right. If it's not a fight or if it's not a cutscene, there's no music whatsoever, which means there's no relevant story-driven action going on, which means it's you walking around and stabbing salamanders and climbing trees and wondering why you're here. And, that's the beauty of that game.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a really good point.
All right. What about you?
Well, the one I thought of, and I'm not 100% sure if this is the case, but after you defeat a boss in Zelda, doesn't the music totally stop? And I guess in a lot of games, but I'm thinking Zelda specifically because it's so
Like when you're
chaotic
walking around the room
and
with the heart
dramatic.
container?
Wait, what's that?
Like when you're walking around the empty room with the heart container?
Yeah, once you see the whole
you're right.
musical finale and the boss dies and it explodes and its head ends up next to Link's feet and you're like, man, is it rated E? And there's just that heart piece,
Right.
or heart container or whatever, floating and making its magical sounds in the center.
Yeah.
And it's just like this quiet after the storm sort of effect. Like
There might be really soft ambient music, come to think of it.
There might be, and if so, then disregard this opinion as stupidity. But if there isn't any ambient music, that's a great use of no music. Because it really feels like taking a breather. It really feels like you didn't realize you'd been holding your breath for that last stab.
Oh my gosh, that sentence started out so promising.
Sometimes, the words just don't make sense.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point as well. I mean, if there was no music, that's a good... While we're on that topic, I think if Tekken had no music, it's really interesting that Tekken would have no music.
Yeah.
We're going to go the hypothetical route here. No, really.
And kind of my other answer was very close to yours, which was pretty much every environment in Ico.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, same team.
Yeah, so it's kind of the same answer. But,
right.
So I guess, it seems to be oftentimes when a developer makes a conscious choice to not include music or to take away music, it can actually be more powerful than adding music in the first place. But I don't feel like it's done that often. Or if it is, I don't notice it very often.
Yeah, it's probably somewhat rare, but I thought that was an interesting example of it. Alright, so moving on to question number 6. We are going through this much faster now. When did a soundtrack particularly kick you out of the moment? I unfortunately did not come up with an answer to this, Stephen.
Oh, really?
No, but do you have one?
Well, just in case Jim could decipher our stupidly difficult questions this week. Do you have anything, Jim?
Nothing comes to mind. I understood the question, if that was what you're asking. I'm just trying to think of like what has had particularly inappropriate music or bad music, and nothing.
Music that feels.
Well,
There was a time in Frog Fractions where no.
Oh, yeah, that moment. I was completely right out of the experience when I went to court. Just, what? You can't go to court as a frog?
I don't think that was the music that was confusing you.
Oh. Well, it was, the thematic relevance was there.
Was probably actually my favorite part of the game.
Anyway, I actually have a few examples that I remembered. Right. I really feel like the ending of Dishonored did that to me.
Oh, right.
Did you ever play/finish this game, Jim?
I did, and I don't remember the ending of the music. The music ending music.
It was, I don't remember what it was called. It was sort of a modern rock song that suddenly started blaring for the credits.
Mm-hmm.
And after, that game had a really distinct style about it. I don't really remember the music that well, but it was very, background and rather toned down and fitting.
Atmospheric, yeah, okay.
But then all of a sudden, there's this song that sounds like it should be playing on some Reject Hits radio station.
It wasn't bad. And I don't think there's a Reject Hits radio station.
There might, I don't know. I don't
I guess
radio. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't think it's as bad. I know what you're getting at. I don't
want to be too harsh. It wasn't a terrible song, but boy, did it not remind me of anything that had happened in the last 10 hours.
Right.
Like,
it reminds me of the rock song that's on the Ace Combat Assault Horizon soundtrack called Gotta Stay Fly. Pretty stupid song.
Except that I feel like that fit with that game.
No, I think it would. It just didn't fit with the rest of the soundtrack.
But, I had made my choice. There were some hard decisions at the end of Dishonored.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. It's just, it pulled me out. I didn't feel satisfied. I was sitting there just thinking, why is this playing? Who is this for? What? That's kind of the epitome.
Well, that's a good point. I think you might be able to point to a lot of different licensed music when they try to use it in games. It can often go wrong.
Really, I think that the original song Clones that played at the end of Republic Commando
was... Who did that again? Was it Korn?
No, it was like Ash or something.
No, Korn did it for, Haze.
Haze, yeah.
An original song for Haze, that's right.
So I guess licensed music has the power to do that, especially when just put in there as...
credits.
Just like, hey, people know this music. It's appropriate to do when the game is over because the whole facade is...
Facade? Facade.
Words, man. Why do we run a podcast?
I thought of something.
Okay.
I thought of one. Yay. In Terry Kavanagh's game
Right, Spikes.
Which has an amazing soundtrack. Mm-hmm. There's actually a technical error in the overworld music where the guy gets the chord progression wrong for like one measure.
Really?
Yeah.
I've never noticed that. That's interesting.
It bothers me whenever I hear it.
Is it is that a song that will loop for a while? Do you hear it over and over again, or?
Yeah, I think it's like a minute 30-second loop.
Yeah, and you're in the overworld quite a bit in that game, so that's a problem. I never actually noticed that.
That's interesting, like hearing a musical flaw and that being the thing that pulls you out.
It's not something that usually happens.
No, it happens to me all the time when I'm playing Rock Band, though.
That's interesting, yeah.
Actually, one game that does that. I'm trying to remember what it's called. Let me see if I can find it in my Steam library. Nope, I sure can't. Well, it's some kind of... Oh, here it is, Everyday Shooter. It's a very cool little game. Sort of, your Geometry Wars style dual stick shooter. And the music is very important to the core mechanics of how the whole thing works. But there's something about it that just feels a little low fidelity. Is that a good word to use? The quality seems a bit iffy.
It's clearly like a punk rock soundtrack.
Yeah.
And so low fidelity is pretty fitting.
And I'm not really into that genre of music, to be honest. So it might just be my tastes. I don't like that kind of. I don't know. It just sounds a little too messy for a game that is rewarding me with the music amping up.
What are we talking about again?
Everyday Shooter?
Oh, Everyday Shooter, okay.
Yeah. And it just never clicked with me. it was almost a rhythm game in a weird way, and that did kind of mess that up for me. But could be personal taste. I don't know.
Yeah.
And if you want to hear one more example, I've got one.
Go.
And this is from Morrowind, actually. And
Are you talking about like when you fight a rat and it plays the combat music?
That's a good example.
That's half of it, especially when you've killed the rat and the game is convinced that something really scary and dramatic is still going on.
Yeah.
There you go.
Now,
Yeah, that's every game where it switches dynamically between like walking around music and fighting music. That's my example.
There you go.
and I'm always super impressed when a game can nail that. And a few games have. I actually really liked how Final Fantasy XIV did it. I feel like it's fairly spot on, giving a bit of a buffer time before it starts and stops the music. It's not overly sensitive. You don't like wander into the peripheral vision of a monster and then it starts up and you can't get rid of it for a minute. But,
it's a hard problem to solve because while you can actually, it works pretty well to dramatically increase the intensity of music. You can kind of do it just between the space of a measure. You can just do it instantly. Ramping back down, it takes time, and you need to actually compose a transition, unless you're going to crossfade it, which is kind of lame, but people can get away with that. It doesn't sound right to just cut it back down to ambience in the space of a beat.
Exactly. Yeah, that's an extremely coherent point, and probably the
best point in this podcast.
Maybe so. I don't know. Bugs was pretty good.
Bugs was pretty good.
Eat bugs.
Yeah, exactly. Hashtag. But I feel like if you were to design the music around having, I don't know if you even could, I'm no musician, but if you were to really pay close attention to giving the music a lot of chances, a lot of places where it could make a fairly hard stop, I wonder if that would affect your actual composition if you're, going overtime into building the whole thing for an adaptive system. I don't know.
Yeah, it would have to.
Yeah, that's weird. But
I can't think of a game that's actually done it super well.
Not perfectly. It's a tough. I remember
not that example. Well, go on.
Oh, I was just going to say, Ocarina of Time is one of the earliest I can remember.
But it
certainly
was delayed. There was way too many to land it. Yeah. What were you saying, Jim?
That example, I can't think of a good example of specifically switching between those two intensities. But have you guys played Monkey Island 2?
I played the first. I haven't played the second.
Same.
Monkey Island 2, and I don't think this ended up making it into the recent remake, but in the original, it had the most amazing dynamic music system in it. Like the music team on that game were also programmers, and you can tell they were really showing off. And you could do a lot more back then than you could do now because it was all synthesized on the fly. It was all like ad-lib sound rather than like a single stream of music being all you can do. So they sat down and they like every place that it made sense to write in a transition, they took the time and composed something. And it was incredibly dynamic, and if you're paying attention, really impressive. But the reason they never really did that again was that nobody noticed.
Aw.
That's
a shame.
That's a really sad outcome.
Yes. But I would say,
so what sorts of things did they have musical flourishes for that they didn't before?
The showpiece was right at the beginning of the game where you're walking around a town, like a pirate town, made out of like scraps of ships, and there's a single song that's playing throughout the whole time, and then they wrote specific versions of the song for every room in the area. And then they wrote transitions, like every 2 measures, they wrote a transition from the song into any of the songs that they could be moving to. So anytime you can walk from one area to the next, they would have like something they could queue up and play a transition.
That's pretty amazing.
So much work and
Yes.
so awesome.
Yeah, it was incredible. And there was another part where Guybrush is trying to woo Governor Marley, and it's a dialogue tree sequence, so you can say things that are like wooful and you can say things that are horrible. And the music changes from goofy to romantic depending on how you're doing. And it just smoothly transitions between the two. It's really kind of amazing. And in the remake, at least on the version I played, that scene is completely silent.
Oh, wow. What a bummer.
Yeah.
I guess they're like, well, we're going to have to be able to transition between old music and new music and have the changing music. Maybe they just didn't want to put the effort in because no one would notice.
Yeah. There was probably just very little budget for the remake, and that I can't imagine. Like, I don't even know if it would be possible to make that sort of thing work on a system where your interface to music is an MP3 stream.
Yeah. That's very true. Oh, well, we can remember the olden days of Banjo-Kazooie, which would change the music as you walked around Gruntilda's lair.
Oh,
that was awesome.
Yeah.
Yep.
I
did a little bit of that sort of thing in Frog Fractions.
Oh, where?
At the very beginning, if you dive underwater, it crossfades to like a softer version of the same piece.
Yep.
That whole little area reminded me so much in Banjo-Tooie, where you could go back to Spiral Mountain.
Oh, and go down and break the rock and find
there'd be that fish stuck under the boulder. And for some reason, it just reminded me of diving down to like a familiar lake and saying, "What is down here? What is this? This is awesome! It's a secret! I'm smart for finding it."
Yeah, I wonder how many people have played Frog Fractions and said, "This is boring," and stopped. Before
I'm guessing a lot.
Yeah.
Like, I sort of like, as much as I want the game to be successful and everyone to experience it, I kind of hope that a lot of people do that because it just makes it funnier.
Well, it makes it more of a legitimate secret.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not a very good secret if everybody finds it.
The problem
and it's a secret that just goes on and on and on and on.
Right. That's the fun of it. Is like you get to be like, oh, I'm the only person who found this, right? Well, of course that's not true, but it feels like it, and that's the intent anyway. And it's just it's a secret that's you're finding something that is 10 times the size of what you thought was the game.
Yeah, that was the brilliant part. Mm-hmm.
Sort of like, you remember the that scene in the original Star Wars where the ship is flying over the screen and it just keeps on going and you keep thinking it's going to stop, but it doesn't?
Oh, like the Star Destroyer?
Yeah.
At the beginning? Yeah.
It's kind of like that, but funnier.
Yeah.
Frog Fractions. It's like Star Wars, but funnier.
Exactly. The best way to sum it up.
Next question. How can visual elements complement/affect the music, and vice versa? And this is question 7, by the way.
Well, that's an interesting question. Who thought that one up?
You.
Yeah, I use it a lot. I'm gonna point
Note
to...
highways.
Note highways. Good. Very good.
Let's think of an example from Rock Band 2.
Note highways.
I'm gonna go look at our old friend World of Warcraft for this one.
Okay.
Audio Surf.
Wait, what was that, Jim?
I said Audio Surf.
Oh. Okay, keep them coming.
Thanks.
What was I even saying? I was talking about World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
Like always. I feel
Frequency.
like... Good. Samba de Migo. I feel like in World of Warcraft, every environment they craft, I feel like the people at Blizzard take a look at it, think of what the tone and what the mood of that entire place is going to be, and then just drench the whole place in whatever that distinct color paint is. Like, this place is going to be really poisonous and creepy and crawling with undead and maggots. So the skybox becomes purple, and the mists become green, and everything becomes ashen black. All the textures veer in that direction, and the music just follows suit. It can't be anything it can't, catch your attention or be obnoxious or intrusive. It has to be in the background. It has to exude that very specific mindset and mood they're going for. And I feel like that's one of the most masterful examples of the visuals and the music just being one.
I agree. Blizzard doesn't always have a ton of subtlety when they do particular things, but what they make up for that with is like focused vision, and vision that goes across all of their aspects of the game: art, music, gameplay, etc. So yeah, they definitely had that unique idea for a zone, and they just say like, this is the one thing about the zone we want to get across. It is a zone with a swamp in it, and it's haunted. And that's
I would
two things
argue that that's the vision informing both the visual and the music, though, not the visual is informing the music or vice versa.
That's a good point. I agree.
That's actually really, yeah, that's true. Yeah, I guess you're right, because technically the question was written how visual elements...
No, you said how can they complement. I think the visuals and music are complementing each other.
No, did it say that? I thought it was, okay, yeah.
Complement/effect. But yeah, that's a good point, Jim.
Fine,
it's not
you
affecting.
can be right.
Go back to your note highways and rock bands.
But no, so, Steven, yes, that's an example of it complementing each other.
Yeah, I think that's true. But I think they're definitely coming at it from that unity of like one distinct vision, like you guys said. Like,
they're very good at it. Affecting would more be the note highway.
Sure.
It would be. I'm trying to think if there's something else, man. Like, what about the music? I'm trying to think if there's ever been an example of the music giving you clues on what to do with the visuals, or...
Oh, that's...
Have you guys played, it's a Xbox Live indie game called I Made a Game with Zombies in It?
Seen it, haven't played it.
Okay, yeah, I thought that was that, and also, like, another example is, in Alan Wake, there's a gameplay sequence based around a rock concert.
Yes, I remember.
And those are both two excellent examples, I think, of designing a game around a musical sequence.
Oh, you're right, because like in the rock concert, at certain big parts of the song, like fireworks and stuff would go off on the stage, and it would kill the undead.
Yeah, that sort of thing.
That was awesome. You're right.
I wonder what the development process was like. Like, did they say, "Hey, we have Podes of the Fall,
Right.
in the bag for this"? I
bet they just said, "Write us a song and we'll do it.
We'll put it in the game somewhere." Like, there were those crazy old rocker dudes.
Yeah. And obviously,
yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's a good question.
I wonder how far that went back. Like, I wonder if all of that was created because they knew they would have this music, or if
they would have known they'd have Poets of the Fall because they worked on Max Payne 2. So,
yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Probably right. So,
and actually, that came to mind when you were complaining about the modern rock song at the end of Dishonored. It didn't fit the question, but I kind of wanted to bring up how well that Max Payne 2 ended.
Yeah. I love that song, and I still want to play Max Payne 2. I know the song and not the game yet, but I've heard like it's also a melody throughout the game and not just at the very end.
I should point out that licensed music, or especially music that is from a licensed artist, but is created for the game, it can be super effective, such as a Pokemon move.
Or what? Like Pokemon had licensed music?
Each move was a licensed song.
Oh, right, of course. Gotta love that Tail Whip. It's my favorite song. Miley Cyrus, Tail Whip. Great.
Whoa, that really sounds like a song that could exist. I mean, like, really.
Yeah, unfortunately. That was more accurate than I intended it to be. So I had something about music being affected. Yes, the music stages in Rayman, Legends.
Oh, another good point. That's another example of gameplay being constructed around the conceit of music.
Right, and that was basically you were platforming to a beat and to a song, which is really cool. All right, moving on to our final question, actually.
Oh,
question number 8. What have you been working on? And this basically means we can all plug our projects now.
Oh, good. Yeah. Let's let Jim start.
Go ahead, Jim.
Thing to do.
I've been working on the Kickstarter to Frog Fractions 2, A.k.a. Frog Fractions 2.
Okay.
Is that second one with like 2 O's? 2?
No,
you're going the Luke style.
it is now.
Excellent. Already editing it. Okay, well,
great.
Here's a question. What?
That was funny.
What is this thing?
Well, Kickstarter is a website that provides crowdfunding services. If you've got a project that you want to make happen and you can't finance it via traditional means, you can go directly to the consumer and ask them to just give you money.
That sounds great.
So the consumer is kind of like kickstarting your idea.
Right, yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
And so, in my case, I'm saying people, hey guys, I want to do something, I won't tell you what it is, please give me money.
See, now why I respect you for that is I love a good con man. No, really. I respect you for that.
Oh, it's great. Like, I won't even announce the release, so like, I could just, run off.
Say it's on, you could pull Half-Life 3, it's coming.
It's out, guys. You guys haven't found it yet?
What if Valve tried to kickstart Half-Life 3? Oh my gosh. What kind of response would they get? Anyway, why I really respect you for that is I think Kickstarter, the danger of people saying, you're our fans, you can influence our work, is creative vision can get sacrificed really easily. Mm-hmm. Things get to be spoiled. I mean, everyone's a part of the development process, and then you can't. One of the most wonderful things about media is you get a new experience that you've never seen before, and you can be surprised by it. And I think that I would like to see Kickstarter be able to offer those surprises and not everything be kind of making their project an open book to the consumers.
Well, for the most part, you have to in order to sell it.
Yeah.
Which is tragic.
I know.
There are a lot of projects, for example, mine, that are really a terrible fit for Kickstarter.
Yeah.
But
exactly.
You have to look at it the other way. If you want it to be big enough and you really need the money behind it, it's very likely that your fans are going to demand less creative shackling than a publisher.
I'm flying basically entirely on my reputation here. So
right. I think someone who's doing something a little similar to you, obviously not to the same degree, is Cyan Worlds. Creators of Myst. They're saying we're not going to tell you what's in this game because the point of a Myst game is discovery. So if you trust us, back our Kickstarter.
Did that work for them?
Yeah, they got funded.
Awesome.
And they're working on it. I don't know how the game's going to be yet. I think it looks cool.
That's another good example of a team that can get away with that sort of thing because they do have a good reputation.
Exactly. So I'm hoping Kickstarter, for people who already have a name for themselves, will start to allow different levels of transparency, and that'll go well.
They were very supportive of this project.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's great. I just hope that it proves viable and there isn't a flashback or something.
I actually saw the CEO of Kickstarter in my backers list.
That's amazing.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Everyone just go to the page. I don't think we can properly explain it. Watch the video.
We'll link in the show notes.
Bell.
Yeah.
Over there.
Really obvious. 1, 2, 3. Yeah.
Yes. Utterly fascinating. But we do have an exclusive announcement here on Train Station at 8.
Wait, what?
The way that you can actually get this game the fastest, since you don't know where it's going to be, you need to go download the Power Rangers Skyrim mod. And I believe it's hidden in that code under somewhere the JSON file. So check that out, and we look forward to your reactions.
I'm going to have to ask you to see me after class.
The alternate way you can unlock it is to follow us on Twitter.
That's a good one.
You can follow us at Train Station at 8. Is there anything else you're working on, Jim, before I go into the show closing?
I can't think of anything.
Okay.
I just want to say, like, I can't imagine, well, you know what? There's no need to make this, there's no need to make this excuse because everybody who's listening has played Frog Fractions because we said spoilers.
Uh-huh.
So I don't need to say, like, if you don't understand what's going on in the Kickstarter, there's a reason for that.
Yes.
Right.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, like we said, play Frog Fractions, and who knows what Frog Fractions 2 is going to be. I'm not 100% sure if Jim even knows, but I'm very, very excited to see whatever the heck it is.
I forget.
So.
I'd have to check the page. Do you have the estimate release date for it, or is that still in
I do have an estimated release date, but that's an estimate.
Okay. You estimate that you have an estimated date. Gotcha.
Yes.
All right, so you can follow us on Twitter at TrainStation at 8. You can follow me personally at Lord Meldor. That's 2 R's. You can follow Steven at StephenKelly180. You can follow Jim. Where can they follow you, Jim?
Mogwai Poet, that's MOGWAI_POET.
Okay. Awesome. And is there anyone else they can find you, like website or what have you?
I go to twinbeard.com. I'll be there somewhere.
Okay, cool. You can find us at at whalesorwhales.com. We don't have our own website yet. Whales or Whales is the network we are under for more awesome shows like this with people like us, because they're literally us a lot of the time. Go to whalesorwhales.com.
That was either a truly phenomenal pitch you just made or the worst ever.
I don't know which. All right, and you can email us at trainstation8@gmail.com if you want to have questions or if you want to complain or you want to sing us a song in text format, which would be weird.
Yeah.
And that's it. So,
but if you do want to invent the lyrics for "Tail Whip" by Miley Cyrus, we might
feel free.
We might make a performance for our next episode.
All right, so we shall see you next week because this is a weekly thing now.
Yes, it's a big change. We just had too much of a response to make it bi-weekly. So
exactly. So we're excited about that. Then suddenly no one's going to agree to be on our show.
Yeah, exactly. We're setting ourselves up for future failure. But right now, let's pretend we're popular.
Yes. Join us next week, and until then, say goodbye to the monkey porter.
That's our outro, Jim.
Yes.
Hello.
It's an Animal Crossing reference.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's funny. I've played probably 500 hours of Animal Crossing. I didn't get it.